they were able to observe the industrialization and the, of course, reform and renaissance that has been going on in Europe for some centuries. And they were feeling that, they were aware that they were lagging behind, not only culturally and from the intellectual point of view, but also militarily, which was showing itself by the defeats that the empire was being faced, contrary to the centuries of victories and being one of the superpowers of the time. And by the way, the level of Turkish arts and culture can be only explained by the fact that for some time the Ottoman Empire was the power in its region. That's why they were able, the Ottoman sultans, having high levels of appreciation for arts and culture, they were able to collect best available around the region. Most of the countries were directly under the Ottoman rule, so it was possible to bring the intellectuals, artists from around these provinces of the empire. And the others were also within reach because of the importance of the country. So the Ottoman sultans were able to blend the cultural diversity, cultural components that they were able to gather in Istanbul and perfected it in a way as in the past, contrary to popular culture of today, the patrons of arts and culture were only the highest class, the ruling class, and in this case it was the sultans. And if you have a good appreciating patron, then you have a flourishing art, as we have seen in Europe after Renaissance. So this was the case with the Ottomans, and they were looking more and more to the example that they were able to see in Europe and imitating the European ways of doing things for 2 centuries before the final collapse. But of course, it didn't prevent the collapse, because none of the reforms that the Ottomans were trying were overarching. They were not encompassing all the components of life. So here and there, pragmatic, smaller scale reforms didn't show what they wanted. As a result, we came into the final collapse in the form of First World War. First World War might be different to everyone, but for the Turks, it was the war to share the remains of a fallen empire. So this was, in my perspective, the First World War was fought to share the remains of the Ottoman Empire, which happened that way. And at the end of the war, Turkey was designed much, much smaller than what we are today, with some occupation of the land that we have today. And Kemal Atatürk was a leader of military origin who organized resistance and fought a war of independence. As I said, this name is given as such. In Turkish, there is a nuance. It is not exactly independence, but we have not totally lost our independence at any point, but the government in Istanbul under the Sultan was under occupation by the British forces for 2 years. So it was, in a way, it lost the sovereignty. But the Anatolian resistance got it back, and after a war of four years of war of independence, it was the Republic of Turkey that was established. And this republic chose a totally dramatic way of establishing itself. It was led by Atatürk, as I said, who was a military leader but turned out to be a great statesman and a social builder, if I may say so. So transformed the Turkish society very dramatically. There is no such example anywhere of a country transforming itself in such a short period of time. And indeed, there is no other word to describe this. And in Turkey, we describe this era as a revolution era, revolution of republic. So sure. This was the short explanation that I could.
It was a revolution because everybody in Turkey used to wear a red fez, and the red fezes disappeared, and everybody had a beard, and everybody was lined up, and the beards were shaved from their faces, and that was the end of backward-looking Turkey and its change into a forward-looking thing. But I still have some difficult questions for you.
Yes.
One of which relates to NATO. I could understand that you were a member of NATO at a time when you had the Soviet Union, because there were two blocks and you had to belong to one of them, and you were on the periphery of the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union has gone. It's no longer there. How are you a member of the North Atlantic? You are not in the North Atlantic. This is very poor geography. And I know that we are in the United States because the NATO, firstly, how does it think that Turkey is in the North Atlantic? Of course, this is the same organization which today thinks that Afghanistan is in the North Atlantic, which is why it is in Afghanistan. Well, what are you doing there?
This is a very critical phase in the Turkish Republic's history. In 1952, when we joined NATO, we had a very important reason. It was the Soviet Russia that was claiming some territory on Turkey, and they were also asking some rights over the straits because of the strategic importance of the Turkish straits, Istanbul and Çanakkale, or Dardanelles as it is also known, Bosphorus and Dardanelles. These two straits were important for Soviet Russia for obvious reasons, because it was the only way out from Black Sea towards the open seas. Apart from the northern seas that they had access, this was the only way. So Turkey chose to join NATO and participated in Korean War, and that was a very important beginning engagement for Turkey with the Western world. And we have been an important member of NATO from that time until now. Turkish army is the second largest army in NATO after United States. So this gives the significance of our contribution to the alliance. We feel ourselves very well adapted, very well present in NATO. We don't feel, we are not taking the name seriously or as a problem. NATO is, in our understanding, is the organization that Turkey was a significant member, and from the beginning we have been a satisfied member of NATO. And we have also done our responsibilities to the best of our abilities, and this is how makes the Turkish people proud. We defended the lines of the Western world at the border when the world was in two camps, when the Cold War was dividing the world into two. We sat right at the border. For a period of time, we tried to sit on the fence without deciding, but the claims, land claims of Russia triggered eventually that we should join one of the clubs, and it was the Western club that we obviously chose